Hello and welcome to the Vector Garden. Let's celebrate the Donut Day. And for the Donut Day, I'm going to draw a donut, and we're going to use 3 different techniques to create a 3D look on this object. So of course, this is based on appearances. And I'm going to start with the single anchor point. So there we go. We've got one anchor point and we want to make a donut. This anchor point has been reset to the basic appearance because I have selected this option in the appearance panel, which sets this back to the basic appearance. The basic appearance is just a stroke and a fill. No effects, no transparency, but of course both or one of them or none of them can have a color. And in this case, it already has the gradient fill, and I'm going to reset that. So let's go to the basic graphic style and let's delete this fill color and really start from scratch. So the object has a stroke and a fill, and we're going to use this stroke. But even if I make this stroke thicker, you don't see it because there's just an anchor point. So let's create the circle, and the circle has to be just this stroke. So we're going to Effect, Convert to Shape, Ellipse. And in this case, you can make that relative or absolute, and I'm going to use absolute. So let's make this thicker, like this, and then we have the base object. If you want to know the difference between those two settings, I've got a video about that as well. So let's get out of here and let's give this an even thicker stroke like this. So the first technique to give this a 3D look is of course the gradient. So let's go to Window, Gradient, and the gradient is already here, but we're going to reset that as well. And in order to do so, you press the Command key on Window, it's Control, and click on this button in the tool panel. And then we have the basic gradient applied, and we're going to set it up. So like this, and let's make this a radial gradient. And then we're going to set these up. So this will be a dark brown, and then let's set another stop right next to it and set this to a lighter brown. And then let's set this as well and set this to an even lighter brown. And then I'm going to use this one like here, and then it will get darker again like this. And maybe we can set this further to the left, make this a little softer here, and then let's just duplicate this stop and make it darker again. And this one can be slightly lighter here, like this. And of course, you can adjust that until you like it. So, like this. And let's go in here, like so. And it needs to be slightly to the left. And then we have that. As you have seen here, so you can make this wider so that you have more space in here and can adjust them finer. Let's get out of it. We don't need that anymore because we will use different methods. Let's just make a copy of this stroke, and this can be smaller. So It's selected and I'm just clicking on plus like this. And the next one is just pink. And of course it's a little thinner, and then we want to have this kind of glazing look to it. So it needs to be uneven. And to get that, we're going to Effect, Path, Outline Stroke. So for Illustrator, it's now no longer a stroke, it's a shape. But it just behaves like that. Of course, actually, there's just that one anchor point. So let's go on and go to Roughen. And I'm just going to apply that first because it needs to be in here. It needs to be applied after the stroke is outlined. So let's get in here and let's set that to smooth and less detail and maybe a slightly smaller size. Or maybe we're going to do something different and make this stroke a little thinner, like this. So we have the glazing. And the glazing, of course, needs to have some 3D as well. So in order to get that, we're going to apply the effect Inner Glow. And it's set to center, not to edge. So it's applied from the center, and let's set this to kind of pink, like this. And we need to have more blur, but that is too much, like this perhaps. And then we have a 3D look to that as well. And we can even enforce that and also apply a drop shadow to that. So just this stroke gets a drop shadow so that the 3D look is even stronger. And I'm going into the Inner Glow again and reduce that. So like this. Okay. Now what we want to have is the sparkles. And in order to get those, we just need another stroke. This time I have created a new one, and this needs to be much thinner. And of course we need the ellipse effect, and we can duplicate that just by pressing Alt and dragging it there, and there we have the base for this. And then we are going into the stroke options and make this a dashed line, and it needs to be this option. When we have that one, it vanishes for whatever reason. And then of course the rounded ones. And you might have guessed it, so I'm going to make them shorter and the gap a little larger, like this. Of course, again, we need Roughen. So let's go to Distort and Transform, and then let's set up Roughen like this. And Roughen needs to be applied after the ellipse, like this. And then let's see how we can get them sprinkled around, like that. And then let's make some copies. And the nice thing about Roughen is that it's randomized. So it will look differently on each of these new strokes. I think we're going to have blue ones, like this. And then, in order to get them in 3D, of course, we can use a 3D effect. So let's just take Inflate, just like this. So in here, and then we get Inflate. Let's go to the materials. Of course, they should be shiny, very, very shiny. And then you can go in here and set up the lighting. So just like that. That we have lighting on that. You can set multiple lights. And then, of course, in the end, click on Ray Tracing to get better rendering. And, of course, we can also activate the shadows. And let's see here. Let's have them below the object. That's not correct. Behind the object. So shadows are a little finicky, and they need to be adjusted. I'm going to turn them off. They are going to stop the rendering anyway. So this is the next one. Of course, if those shadows do not give you the correct result, you can of course also apply a drop shadow. And again, we can duplicate this by pressing the Alt key and moving it into all the other sparkles. I'm going to leave it at that because then the rendering will slow down pretty much. So let's take a look at this one over here. So this kind of decoration, I'm going to make a copy for that. And in this copy, I'm going to get rid of all those sparkles, and I'm going to get rid of this roughen. I'm going to leave the inner glow, and I'm also going to leave the shadow. And what we need in here to get these kind of lines is we're going to effect and scribble. And then you see we get this scribbly decoration. You can adjust all of that, and all of that are pretty loose, and I've also have some variation in here, and the stroke width is made by this slider, so this makes this thicker or thinner, like so. Okay, but as you see, the lighting, it does not look very 3D, and that's of course because of the inner glow. So currently the inner glow happens before the scribble here. Let's move the scribble up here like this, so then the shadow looks better. But also we need to have the scribble before the inner glow, and you see now it looks different, and we have to reduce this. Now you see that the inner glow is applied to this line, so we get the 3D look in there as well. So that's how you can decorate your donuts for National Donut Day. Enjoy!